Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the prediction show. So, as always, I'd like to start with some predictions. We did do a show last year, so we'll talk a little bit on the show today about the predictions from last year. But I thought I would start with kind of the heavy hitters in their prediction game, which, if you're not familiar, are the Simpsons. So, let's start with the Simpsons video predictions for 2025. Here we go.
In the Simpsons episode of Margian Chronicles, Season 27, Episode 16, the Simpsons volunteer for a mission to colonize Mars. Initially set for a distant future, their mission gets bumped up when funding starts to dry up. But when it's time to launch, Marge and Lisa are ready to board the spaceship, only for the shuttle to fail at the last minute. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Simpsons predicting Mars missions, that's a bit of a stretch, but in reality, we've been hearing a lot of talk about Mars recently. Elon Musk has been talking about colonizing Mars for years. Now, in the classic Simpsons episode Itchy and Scratchy Land from Season 6, the Simpsons visit a high-tech theme park where the violent cartoon antics of Itchy and Scratchy come to life. Not through human actors and costumes, but through robots. Now, this isn't exactly a groundbreaking idea, right? Sci-fi has been toying with the concept of robots replacing jobs pretty much since the beginning of sci-fi, but all the same, looking at it today, we're seeing robots become more and more advanced every year. With AI becoming a massive force in our world, it's not that far-fetched to imagine a future where instead of actors in cartoon character costumes, we have full-on functioning robots. Simpson becomes the first female president in the United States, but what else did that episode predict? It was years before he even ran for office in 2016, so if the Simpsons got that right, maybe we should start to reveal a sticker reading Ivanka 2028. Now let's talk about something that might be a little closer to home, pun intended. In the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode from Season 13, Marge upgrades the family home into a state-of-the-art smart house called the Ultra House 3000. If you remember the episode, it's basically a 2001 A Space Odyssey parody, and of course the house goes rogue, starts trying to kill Homer. A bit over the top, sure, but here's the thing. Smart homes are already here, and they're getting way more advanced. Next up, let's talk about mind control through music. In Season 12, Episode 14, New Kids on the Block, Bart, Nelson, Milhouse, and Ralph form a boy band called Party Posse. Their first song is a massive hit, but their song is actually being used for subliminal mind control. And the Muse AI robot take over an episode. In the episode Them Robot from Season 23, Mr. Smithers calls all the workers into a meeting. And what's the big announcement? Well, Smithers proudly reveals an army of AI robots, telling the employees you will train them and they will replace you. Next, let's talk about something a little more uplifting, literally, hover cars. The Simpsons wasn't the first to dream up flying cars. I mean, science fiction has been teasing them for decades, but what's really cool is there's actually a company called Samsung Sky. The Simpsons also predicted Trump's 2024 run. This one also ties into the Barbie movie release, but we'll get to that in a minute. So back in 2015, there was a Simpsons short called Trumptastic Voyage. In a scene where Homer flies by a billboard, we see a sign that reads Trump 2024. Economic collapse. Now, that's fun to think about. Well, again, in March of the Future, the United States economy crashes. And in the episode, it's supposedly directly tied to Donald Trump's presidency. While the idea of an economic crash under Trump seemed like a far-out prediction at the time, the reality we're facing today is far from rosy. Here's something that's already here, though. NFTs. In The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode Wild Bart's Can't Be Token from 2023, Mayor Quimby announces that the town's art museum is being closed down because all art is now going to be sold as NFTs. At the time, NFTs were already a thing, but they were nowhere near as huge as they became a few years later. NFT art was exploding a couple years back, but it hasn't gone away.
So there we go. That's the top 10 from The Simpsons. So if you're not a Simpsons fan, their predictions are generally pretty accurate throughout time, which is kind of interesting. But good morning, and here we go. One sec. That's what we want. All right, here we go.
My name's Tony Moore. I'm the general manager of Fred Bean's Kia in Lanark. Just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman, Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now. And anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry's been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry. And he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer. And that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out of a textbook, but Larry has a real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. You want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Good morning and welcome. So I'm trying to think how we start today because we did have a prediction show last year. If you haven't watched that, it's pretty interesting. But I guess as you look at 2025, I guess we start with Rhonda since she was the first person on. First of all, I wanted to announce that obviously the Auto Hub Show is partnering with one of our sponsors, Career Changer USA, which is now becoming Career Changers International if you're looking for staff or training for your dealership. And also our latest sponsor below me here, Brandy from Disclass. Is that how you pronounce it? I want to be sure I don't mess it up. If you are looking to enhance performance, she can definitely help you with that. And then, of course, we have Tim. We have Daniel from Media Kings. And, of course, Peter Smith and the famous Larry Feldman. So who wants to start? You're all muted, I think. So you're going to have to unmute. Go ahead.
I'll go at once, eh?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
Basically, the predictions that I see coming forth is a massive change in how car dealers do business. And they are now reeling in the effects of the post-COVID world where everything was given to them on a silver platter. Now they have to go out and engage with the customers. But the challenge with that is the customers aren't engaging with them. They don't want to engage with them. And that comes down to the trust factor, transparency. They're going to situations where they're inundated with the calls once again that are happening, and they don't, and the customers aren't liking it. So what is happening is the customers are going to
Recording in progress.
the customers are going to redesign the engagement process, and that is going to be very unique, and that's going to lead into people like Tim with CDPs and everything else, and it's going to change it. Now, the other thing that's going to change is the customers are going to create the journey. They're going to create the journey. The dealerships are no longer going to try and control the journey because they're going to lose. And the only thing that's going to happen there is going to be a race to the bottom, and that's not profitable. And they're going to have to develop a new platform to do that.
Thanks for that.
So I see moving forward, the biggest change, the biggest one change, is that the business is going to become more customer centric.
I agree.
More customer centric than it's ever been, because that's going to be the way that they're going to win clients with profitability.
I agree 100%. So let's go with Daniel next, since he's new to the show live. Daniel, tell us more about you and what you do, and you're muted, by the way. There you go.
Yeah. Hey, great to be here. I got into marketing over 8 years ago. My mentor was working on the presidential campaign at that time. And so I got really lucky getting exposed to very large campaigns nationwide and even locally. And actually a prediction, so if we're going to talk about that, we could possibly have AGI in 2025. In fact, the Claude, so like Anthropic and OpenAI and Grok, right, which is XAI, there's already parts of AGI that are available. They just haven't released it to the public yet. And I'm not sure if you all have seen the updates, but they have what's called AI agents. So what's AGI is AGI. So right now we put in prompts and we get information back, right? But with an agent and with AGI, we can not only do prompts, but then we can give it commands, and then it can go do things on the web, right? So right now, even with an agent, you can connect it to GitHub and get it to create code for a website, right? So what's really going to transform a lot of things is AGI, right? Which is artificial general intelligence. It's the next level. It's not just responding to things, it can actually do tasks. And that's going to change the game for so many different industries around the world, right? So I'm actually really excited about it, to be honest with you. It's like amazing what's gonna happen, because we implement AI in what we do. But that's more to have a smoother customer journey, if that makes sense, because that's the gap, right? It's the actual conversational, sophisticated responses, not just canned responses for people, because people can catch that real quick if it's not conversational. And so I would say that's going to be something that's going to shift, make the biggest shifts is the acceleration of AI for sure.
Thanks for that. I guess we should talk to Tim, since he's the other AI data expert on the call today. Tim, what do you think on the AI data front, being that you live in this space all the time?
Well, I don't live in a space all the time, and I'm not an expert. I think the thing is, we're all students.
Love it.
To the point Daniel already made. I mean, the speed at which change is happening right now, there's nobody out there, nobody that has a saddle or a leash, to keep up with it. To some of the points that were just made, 2025 will be the year where I think we're going to see additional cybersecurity events, data breaches happen. because of the laggard state that the retail automotive industry is in, and worse, the lack of digital literacy that exists in retail automotive. We're going to see something happen again. I'll give you 2 points. Just not even a month ago, I was in Scottsdale for Used Car Week, and I sat in a section where Sonic Automotive Group was up there with the folks from A to Z, right? Doug Reeves turned me on to it, who I met on this very show. And they basically told the whole use case about what it's like for Sonic to be able to sell cars on Amazon, and to the point about the customer being controlled. What Peter's already laid out there is it's what advertising agencies have said since the earth cooled, is that we have to go where the fish are, right? And that was basically the narrative that I heard in that session, was that even to the point where Matt Newfort from AWS being able to say, hey, he's already heard from Sonic and another one of the Hyundai dealers who's doing this writ large, you know, and he said, I'm talking to these dealers and they're saying it's the easiest car they ever sold. Because you can actually transact and buy the car with Amazon. You don't have to sit in an F&I office and have somebody try to sell you 18 different products, right? Over an hour to get you this before you sign the document, right? So there's that. I was just back in Scottsdale last week, and I sat on stage with Cliff Banks at Automotive, and we talked about this very thing. It is AI. It absolutely is AI. You have platforms like Impel, which is having great success in the marketplace, which is, instead of a SQL-based customer data platform, which is what most of the also rans in automotive CDPs, and a whole lot of that which is coming from outside the automotive industry, they're taking generative AI to the core of the CDP to be able to traffic and make sense of signals that are coming across all the systems in the dealership, right? So I think we're going to see more AI. I think what I'd love to see, it's more aspirational than being able to tell you what's actually going to happen, is we need to improve digital literacy for security reasons, but also for operational efficiency reasons. We need everybody to be trained up, not how to generate prompts, but how to make sense of unified data, right? How to make sense of customer information and act on it. To not have everything be so automated, but to also understand that a lot of this technology is here just to give you the direction on what to do next. So retraining, I think a lot of people in retail automotive, and this is where I expect Peter and Larry to really chime in. Rhonda as well. I've not met Rhonda before, but because she has that logo behind her, I expect to hear this. If we get the people to basically understand that your current customers they've been under your nose all this time. There's technology now that helps you understand them better, and therefore you got to pick up the phone and talk to them. You need to pick up the phone and ask them to lunch. You need to call and see what time they'll be home, so you can bring a new truck by their house and say, let's take it for a test drive. And here's the great news. I can sell this to you today and keep your payment the same if you let me drive your old truck back, right? I mean, it is about that. Now, Peter may look at that and say that's controlling the experience. Not really as much, because it's the customer's data that's telling them what to do, and they're reacting and acting on the customer's terms. So I think we'll see that be the difference between the dealers that grow. And this is one of the one-liners that came out of Automotive last week, was for years, 10 cars a month has been the thing, right? And no matter what's happened with technology, it's still 10 cars a month. AI is going to change that for some dealers, and those that embrace it in many of the ways, and many more that I didn't say, are going to be the ones that I think are going to move to 12, 15, 20 cars a month, because they're understanding the efficiency and the fluidity it brings to their operation.
Thanks for that. Brandy, what do you think? Brandy, did we lose you? Brandy, what do you think? Hello.
A few things actually struck me. First, I want to know how many people actually went into chat or to AI and asked what the predictions were, because I did. I want to know what they think too. I always want to know what they think too. Few things that struck, and I think we're facing right now. This last year was really about the reset, and I bet you that was one of the topics on last year's prediction show about a reset. We really needed a reset after COVID, as it's been mentioned. But reset, retrain, and repeat customers. This is where these are all the things that are not being capitalized on in any store for a number of reasons. But those are going to be and should be everybody's focal points moving forward. I don't see enough stores capitalizing on their database. I almost feel like it's like a hit them fast and go, whereas the stores or the people that I find are the most successful are the ones that are customer centric, are the ones that are catering to what they have. They utilize what they have. They haven't depended on leads as much as the other dealers, etc. So those will all be things. I also feel like it's such a fine line when we're in it versus when you can work on it. And we've been so hard, like we've been hard at working on everything, in everything, the day-to-day, just barely catching up, just trying to make ends meet, that we forget to work on it. And so, working on it is just as important. And these are the things, like, you use your downtime properly for setting up your infrastructure for the next year, be it artificial intelligence, but you really do got to go in with a plan. So
Thanks.
like all things.
Rhonda, the one and the only, hasn't been on before. Introduce yourself and tell us what you think.
I'm Rhonda Wenner. I work for Larry as his marketing director. He calls me his publicist. I don't do that, but I do marketing. I was very struck by the data that came out of the past election. Three things that really should have defined everything for everybody. And I'm not talking about any of the political polls, which were garbage, every single one of them. Number one, I think it was Gallup. It was 2/3 of this country, of the United States, thought we were going in the wrong direction. Number two, and I don't remember if it was Pew, I think it was, about 30 to 35% trust the mainstream media. And then something like 20 to 25% trust the government. So I think we're coming from a place where your average person is distrustful, is jaded, and I think that every single one of them individually needs to be given that trust back and given that their personhood back. And I think, it's that human side of AI that Wendy likes to talk about all the time. But I think that the kind of training that Larry does, where he not only teaches his students to be personal with their customers, but he teaches them to be personal with themselves and really to figure out who they are and to be authentic. And I think that's really what we have to bring out. And what I see people trying to do upcoming, because you can't deal with data like that and say, oh, everything's just fine. It's not.
Agree 100%. I mean, I think the thing that was misread the most was just if there's the top 5 things that people want, and then one of the parties was just ignoring that, which shocked me. It was like, okay, here are the top 5 things everyone cares about. That's what you got to focus on. I mean, what do you think, Larry? I know you're not political at all. Larry.
Yes, sir.
Give me your thoughts on the future. I know you're heavily technically savvy, and that's important. Go ahead.
It's true. I was just on the phone with Bill Gates explaining to him that you shut your computer off with the on button. Calls me every damn night. He's very scatterbrained ever since Melinda left. I'm watching less football than I used to. I've developed old white man syndrome, and it started with the kneeling for the national anthem, and now it's the dancing around every time something happens, even if your team's down by 5 touchdowns. But one thing's consistent. It's a good analogy for what's going to happen next year. If all you do is pass, okay, you're in trouble.
And if all you do is run, they stack the line and you're in trouble. You've got to be able to do both to have a balance. We need to develop more of a hybrid skill set than ever. Everybody picks on me because I pick on myself for being not that technical, but I tell you what, as brilliant as Tim Hayden is and Peter Smith, it would boggle their mind if they looked at my phone and saw 500 apps every day and I get every one where it needs to be. But on the other hand, I think I'm the best guy in this industry, excuse the lack of humility, Brandy, to put their arm around somebody and tell them a joke. I just met Tim's buddy Tim, and in 2 seconds we were best friends. I think you need to be more personable than ever. You need to smile more than ever. You need to listen more and remember the proportion of 2 ears and 1 mouth. But you better damn well be technical too. If one of these 2 components is missing, you're in trouble. Now, it's interesting. I see the future, this next year, I'm not talking about 10 years from now, as being very positive because I see a sense of optimism around business people. I'm jumping on my political bandwagon, but bear with me, and I won't slant it too far.
It's all good.
One of the reasons that Donald Trump got in, even though everybody admits he's a little annoying, a little self-centered, no question, is he's a business guy. And you can't have a business run by people that are not business people. Has everybody on this program encountered a kid with a PhD? Brandy, I'm not talking about college. I'm talking about Aaron has dealership. All of a sudden, the father or the mother who were brilliant and worked their way through the ranks gives it to the kid who's staring out the window. You absolutely, positively have to be personable, but you better damn well be involved. And now that we have a business guy involved, what's the first thing he's done? He's gotten Vivek and Elon involved. These are 2 guys that know how to run a business. Look at their bottom line. We've gotten people in that make sense. Now, half the country, myself included, my best buddy Rhonda included, Mr. Smith, I don't know the rest of your politics, are dead in the wool Trump people. We kissed the ground the day he won. But the people that aren't Trump people, the people that loathe Trump, are still going to be pretty happy when gas goes down and interest rates go down. So I got to tell you, and I have a huge problem. Peter knows that I'm an optimist. You know, if a tree falls on me, I go, boy, I'm glad it wasn't a bigger tree. But I honestly think 2025 is going to be good. I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see optimism. I think people are going to be a little more excited. I'm jumping back one more political thing and then I'll shut up, which is hard for me to do, Tim. Let's go back to Barack Obama. I won't spend 2 hours telling you how I feel about Barack Obama when the word Iran comes up. But if you remember his campaign, it was hope and change. Now, I wasn't sure why you had to change the greatest country on earth, right? 200 years later, we still got a country, the French chopped off all the heads of their leaders, the Russians, blah, blah, blah. But what was the key? Not the change part, the hope part. We need hope. We need to believe that tomorrow can be better than today, that we have the ability to do it. Because I'll tell you, think about how many friends we all have, sadly, that are either a little depressed or have clinical depression. How ugly is it to not get up in the morning and be excited, right? I always quote Thoreau, most men, and by proxy, Brandy, most women lead lives of quiet desperation. How much must it suck to get up in the morning and say, oh, I got to go to work, moan and groan all day, go home, be miserable, and then rinse and repeat. So I think we're going to see optimism from half the country. The other half is going to grow more optimistic as things get more reasonable. And I think we're going to be okay. But if we don't go into it with a hybrid model, if we're not adept at dealing with AI and computers, but don't lose the human touch, we'll be fine. If we lose the human touch, we're screwed. Tim, a couple days ago, I had to reach somebody. I just hung up after the 19th prompt, after the 19th question. I said, this is ridiculous. If they had one person on the line, I already would have paid them some money. Instead, I found somebody else. So that's it. I'm extremely optimistic about 2025. I think we need to work better with our skills, which is great for me. It's great for Peter. Brandy, everybody on the call. And then you got to be better at tying up your information. And for anybody that doesn't know, Tim is brilliant at that. He's got ways of tying all these things together, and that's it. Boy, unfortunately, I don't have the ability to say hello in less than 5 seconds today. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Is it still Monday? That was kind of long.
It is. It is still Monday. Yeah, and I agree. I think you're seeing shifts around the world, and I think
you agree with what?
Oh,
The
I think
hybrid model, the optimism, or the thing about Barack Obama?
Well, I think we got to get back. I think we got to get back to common sense, and that's really what it comes down to. I mean, I think at the end of the day.
Whoa! Hold on, you got to go to Peter because we constantly quote Mark Twain.
Okay.
Common sense is not all that common.
What, Pete? You have a comment on common sense? You're muted, by the way.
Peter, you can't talk about common sense while you hit the mute button, and he's the tech part of this program. He's scary, Tim.
I got to text you and ask you how to work this thing. The problem with common sense is not too common. That's one of Mark Twain's most famous quotes. It's so true.
Wow, we lost him. Are you back?
In all lightheartedness.
Is he in the Matrix, or have I just been hanging out with Peter?
That we're all traveling has to travel.
His feet froze. But go ahead, Peter. Sorry, you froze.
No,
and you're like
no.
Yeah.
So with that, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
So with that, we're traveling to NADA. We got to book an airplane ticket. So we're going to get on the phone or on the computer. We're going to do it either through a third party or the airline direct.
Yeah.
If we were to do that and the airline said, yeah, give us all your information, and then why don't you come down to the airport? And you say, well, I just want I want a price. Just give me a price and availability. Yeah, come down and see us at the airport. So you go down there and you get to the airport, and then they say, okay, well, here's what we can offer you. Well, okay, I'll take it. Well, hold on, I got to run it off to someone and see if that works. And then once we get the price all done, then they say, oh, okay, well, you got to go talk to the person down the hallway there, and they're going to talk to you about bags and how many bags you can bring and what it is. And then you're going to go talk to someone else about insurance. And then you're going to go talk with someone about actually picking a seat and the time. How fast would we not deal with that airline or that third party? Yet we expect that to happen in the car business all the time. That is the norm in the car business, and people can't understand why they can't get past 10 cars.
Yep.
Peter, you started this conversation, all you folks, with Amazon. Why is Amazon so successful? Because they just make it easy.
Exactly. Right? It's frictionless and seamless, and people will pay more. People pay more on Amazon for certain goods.
Yeah.
Because it's easy. No.
Yep.
Think about going to Costco. Certain things at Costco are more expensive than they are anywhere else. And why do you do it? Because it's easy. It's there. Yeah. We're just going to get it anyways. Like, I don't know. Who needs a 32-ounce jar of garlic? Nobody. But because it's there and it's easy and you can pick it up, people do.
Come on, the Greeks and the Italians love that garlic, man. Don't get me wrong.
So if you
wait. Go ahead, Brad.
What comes to mind though is it's not that it's only easy to get it; it's easy to return it if I have an issue. My issues are addressed without a problem. I don't have to. There's no questions asked, and that's
convenience.
Speaking with making things effortless.
Yeah, and they don't care. They don't care. And here's a Costco story for you. I love lamb. And I went and bought lamb at Costco. And I took it home and I opened up the package and it smelled kind of gamey. So I said, you know what? I'm going to put this to test. I'm not going to return the lamb to Costco because why would I bring something that I've opened in its meat and everything else?
Yeah.
I went back with my receipt. And I just explained to them, I said, I'm not bringing back stinky lamb or anything like that. They said, no problem.
Yeah.
Here you go. Done. What kind of customer service is that? That's customer service where it falls under Carl Sewell's book, Customers for Life. We will do things for companies that do things for us, and we will not leave them. We will not shop them. Why? Like the age-old saying is right now it's 1.4, 1.6 dealerships a customer will visit before purchasing a car. Why is it 0.6? It's because the first one didn't do the job.
Right.
That's it. It's not anything else. It's not they'll go to 5 dealerships like they used to do in the 80s. No, they go to 1. They've already made their decision. You're there to reassure them of that decision. That's it. And if you use technology that is available today, you will increase your conversion rate tremendously. And it's a simple thing. I gave a dealership in Bellevue, Washington, a matrix on how to go from 10 cars to 47 cars within 3 years per salesperson. Simple matrix, only using referrals. 100% referrals. That's it. And it's 1 referral per customer per year will get you to 47 customers per month in 3 years. And you don't.
Peter, it's the hybrid model. I to this day I still tell people, unless you're in a state like Ohio and Virginia where you're not allowed to write a referral check, if you texted 5 people a day and said, "Call me, I might have 100 for you," you're gonna have people calling. Go, "What the heck's the 100 for?" Hey man, everybody loves you. Who do you know that needs a car? So, because one thing, if you think about it, with the AI stuff, you're still dealing with people that don't know you. You know, there's no blood running through the vein there. But you're still trying to maximize your attempt to get them into your place first. But if you could combine those skills with being smart enough to market yourself, right? I've never met anybody that doesn't understand that prospecting and repeat referral can get you to a 60, 70% close. And if you're the greatest salesman on earth, what are you going to close it? 15, 18% of strangers?
Yeah. But here's the craziness of that. In my career, 42 years in this business, I never once asked for a referral. I explained it in the sales process at the initial sale that I work off of referrals, and it's the greatest way to celebrate my success with you as a client. But I've never asked for a referral in my entire life. I provided them organic reasons why to refer them to me. And that is the key factor, and most people don't get it. Like, Tim, I'm going to call you up and say, "Hey, Tim, do you know 3 people that you can introduce me for a car deal today?" I'm going to go, "No."
No.
I'm going to call you up and say, "Hey, Tim, I understand the weather dropped in Texas, and you might have this little silly-looking light on your dashboard. Please come by the dealership, and I'll fix it right away, and we'll remove the code, and we'll get your tires off the pressure and everything else." Right. And I send you an email like that, and then when you're in, you're going to say, "Hey, man, when was the last time anyone did that for me at a car dealership?" No, never. Yeah. And that's the way of gaining the organic. And that's going to be the change. If we look organically to the future rather than paid promotion, basically, you are going to grow faster and stronger and harder than anywhere way else. Now, if anyone knows me, every single thing that I've done
We're losing him again. Peter, you're doing it again. Anyway, let's move forward with another comment. Daniel hasn't been on in a while. Go ahead, Daniel.
What I'm seeing in the marketplace too is a lack of mastery of influence. Because I've worked at so many different industries before I got into marketing that they were sales jobs, right? They never had real proper professional training. I had to pay for that. When I got world class training, I paid over $50,000 for that, right? Most dealerships aren't going to have that type of money to pay for mentorship for people. So then how do you bridge the gap? Well, what I've seen with people that have really risen to the top, it's self mastery and also influence mastery, right? Because they could talk to all the people, but then with a lack of influence mastery, they don't convert. And then they're wondering why. And so I'm seeing that as a gap in the marketplace too, because influence, it really is a superpower, right? The more people you can influence, the more sales that you can make, and then it smooths out your entire sales process, right? There's no friction, like you were mentioning. What's an easier way to organically invite people in? And so at least that's what I'm seeing. It's the ones that really rise to the top, they have personal development and they have influence mastery that they're studying deeply.
Daniel, think about how nuts it is. The dealers spend tons of money, maybe 50, 60, 100,000, depending on the size of the dealership a month to get people in. And then when they come in, the people aren't trained to deal with them and help them and listen to them and get the job done. How insane is that?
Right.
Yeah. They spend more than anybody else, even than attorneys. And
Well, that's
That's why everybody should call me. Unlike Peter, I ask for referrals every day.
Brandy, what do you think? I mean, you're in dealerships, you're working with dealers, and what's your thought?
I totally agree with what Daniel's saying. The other thing I also catch is that, a few things. When I learned that the buying a vehicle was some people's number one, if not their number two purchase of their lifetime. Mm-hmm. The fact that you can go to Costco and get treated better than buying a vehicle is actually pretty sad, and we should absolutely be embarrassed. A few things also. I read The Purple Cow. And the whole message is about being remarkable. And that's kind of what we're all saying here. As much as AI and the prediction of using it as the tool that it's intended to be, if you aren't remarkable, you know what, you are going to miss the boat. You have to be remarkable. You have to love it. You have to breathe it. People feel that. It's contagious. If you're going to stand out next to AI, that's how you're going to do it. And then the other thing I see often is we are never continuously researching what's going on. We can say we read the articles, we can say, you watch the podcast, but for example, I just went to price out a Lexus, just a vehicle that I was looking at, and I screenshotted how you could equip the vehicle. You can add on your running boards, your 3M, your protection, any of those protection items right from Lexus. When I looked at the pricing, I've seen business managers try to charge 4 times what Lexus itself is charging the customer on the website. And so we're so ignorant that we aren't watching what our brand is doing, researching and always being on that. This is why we're being eliminated from the process with artificial intelligence, is because the OEM said, I'm not going to leave it in your hands anymore. I'm going to get it from the source and move forward that way. So we've kind of dug our own hole. And if we're not remarkable, if we're not researching, and we're not making the customer's purchase number one, we're going to get buried.
Well, I used to own a Porsche product, and I was getting a major service done on the car. And there were 2 dealers in the market I used to live in. I called both dealers. They're both Porsche franchises. The prices were over $1,000 different for the same service in the same city. I was like, that's got to be the dumbest tone-deaf dealership experience I've ever seen. I was like, wow, like that's ridiculous.
If I may take issue again, let's flip the numbers around. Actually, the dumbest thing is when they don't focus on the cheaper items like oil changes and tires, because then those people go somewhere else, and then that leaks out the back door, and then they wonder why they have retention problems.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, we had a show on recalls, and I was shocked the amount of recalls that are never done cross brands. Like that shocks me. Like, that's an easy call. Like, hey, do you want that fixed? It's free. No, okay. But what do you think, Rhonda? You haven't said much. Go ahead. She's going to get there. Go ahead, Tim. You were saying something. I think she's trying.
I'm no longer muted.
Okay, there you go.
I'll go back to Peter and talking about organic, right? This is something I've been doing with dealers almost every time. It's such a softball. Is I ask them a simple question. I say, do you know who your 200, maybe just your 100 highest lifetime value customers are? And most will look me in the eyes and say, I know who the 20 families are that buy something from me every 18 months. I can tell you that. And I quickly say, 5 of them probably live in your neighborhood, right? Or go to church with you, right? And they'll say yes. And I said, what if you had the ability to find the lifetime value of all of your customers? And then if you were able to find out that there are 3 neighborhoods where every second or third house bought a vehicle from one of your stores, think about this. This is a the Sewell Church right here is reach out to your highest lifetime value or your best influencer champion that you already know. Could be one of those 5 families or those 10 families you know, but reach out to them and say, I got an idea. We're going to load a truck full of ice and we're going to put a bunch of beer in the back of it. And then I'm going to go buy 40 pounds of brisket and all the fixings. And we're going to come into your neighborhood with 3 or 4 vehicles. We're going to let everybody know that we know to be there. Can we park in front of your house? And we're going to have a block party. And if you're really smart, do that on a Saturday and find the neighborhood over from that, which every third house is sold from you, and have the same conversation with somebody there and say, hey, we're going to be in your part of town. Can we swing by at 3 o'clock and do this, right? And just watch what happens, right? This is that organic thing I think you're talking about, Peter, is it's not about influencers who are paid to wear the t-shirt or that have enough followers or anything like that. It's about the customers that you already have that already open their wallet to you and trust you to some degree, who will turn around and tell everybody on planes, trains, and T-ball games to buy from you. You know, that's the kind of thing. If you do that on Monday morning, they're telling everybody else, or at least on Sunday, everybody's coming by their house and saying, who was that? What was that? So can you believe that? We've only bought 2 cars from this guy and got a transmission replaced in one of them, but they wanted to host a party at our house. It was so much fun. I mean, that's what enables that is not a chat bot. It's not a chat GPT. Can't tell you to do that.
Great.
And you're flirting with dynamite if you're letting that touch your precious treasure of first party data. You have the opportunity. You have the opportunity to analyze your data and to do so, to do things like that. And that should be second nature for dealers. I talk about this with Larry all the time, is dealers are the ones who sponsor T-ball games and get a 10 top at the gala for battered women's organizations, right? Or whatever it might be. They're the ones with the heart. They're the ones that everybody knows because they see their faces on the 10 o'clock news. Why aren't they converting on that and activating their brand in ways like that? I don't know.
It's short-sightedness, Tim. It's as Daniel said. He had to seek out. He's obviously a bright guy, but he had to seek out training as opposed to them putting their arms around him and saying, you know what? These are our troops. These are the people that are going to need our customers that we're spending so much and we're so invested in. Let's make sure we've got the absolute. This is like going for surgery, and you say, "Am I going to be okay, doc?" He goes, "How the hell do I know?" You know, I was passing by med school. They needed somebody with a purple shirt. They dragged me in. If dealers are interesting characters, and I'm a former dealer, so I'm probably talking about myself too. They talk a lot, but I'm not sure they always listen to what comes out of their mouth. Haven't we all seen people that talk about culture, and you walk into their store and it's the worst culture you've ever seen in your life? Tim, I've told this story a million times. This will make 1,000,001. I'm at the dealership. The GM is leaving. I just started. And the operator says, boss, you have a call. He says, tell him I left. I thought, how stupid can you be?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, here's something to just tap onto that, Larry.
You're muted, Daniel, just so you know. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no worries. It's funny. I'm in the market to buy a new car, right?
Okay.
I work with a lot of investors and founders of, we're working on a bunch of different projects, and so I'm excited to get myself actually the car that I want, right? Close to my dream car, not a Lambo, but close. And I've gone to multiple dealerships, so like Land Rover dealership, BMW, Mercedes, went to the Ferrari dealership, where else? Audi, right? And you know what's interesting? is that none of them asked me questions about, like, they asked me, like, oh, what do you do? Right? Well, it's like, okay, well, I own a couple agencies. But they didn't dig into, like, well, what do you, what would you like to drive? Or what would be, like, the experience that you're looking for? Or, they're like, oh, well, yeah, here's this car. And then they kind of just, like, shoot the shit with me a little bit, And I wasn't knocking them for it, but because I've been a part of influence and had, a lot of training in it, I was like, why aren't they digging into, like, my why? Like, why am I getting this car? And, like, the emotional part of it is, because logically, I mean, okay, that's, we don't buy based on the logic, right? We buy based on emotion. We justify with logic, and I went to, and none of them asked me questions, like, and maybe a couple of questions here or there, but nothing, nothing in depth, which I thought was a bit interesting. Very friendly, nice people, but not. I could tell there wasn't, like, a process of, like, hey, these are the questions that we ask people, and we get their information, and we know some personal things about them. I guess for us, it's like, due diligence. When you connect deeply with someone, it's they'll move mountains to work with you, right? But you actually have to connect with them.
Hey, you got those
Again, do you
questions.
think it's because you were at luxury dealers and not at kind of middle of the road dealers? They assume that their cars are so great that they don't need to ask you your motivations.
That's a good observation. I partly, but then I can also tell that it's just like a lot of other organizations that I've worked with that have, that do sales. There's no real professional sales training. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm talking about, like, deep psychology, like unconscious competence, right? Like, how do you unconsciously communicate with people? How do you create such deep emotional rapport that people are like, I gotta work with you and I'm gonna figure out how, right? And then even through question mastery, like through the power of questions, we can uncover everything: the needs, wants, desires, goals, driving force, the pain, right? No one asked me about, like, what was the pain. Well, the pain is the fact that I'm done driving this car, right? And I want to get a new car, and I'm super motivated. And I was actually excited to go through the sales process because I wanted to see. But I mean, the types of cars that I was looking for, like, I pretty much, and once I told them what I did, then they were like, oh, okay, yeah, you can drive whatever, right? But that was pretty much the depth of it, and just through my training and stuff, like, I've gone through Tony Robbins' Mastering Influence, gone through Brian Tracy's, Sean Callaghy. He worked with Tony Robbins, absolutely brilliant, one of the top attorneys in the nation. He reduced friction in my entire sales process, and it comes from a very, like, heart-centered place that we deeply connect with people. And so it's just because of that. Not that I was trying to judge anyone, but I was keeping my eyes and ears open to see, like, well, who's really got, the training? Because I've heard people that have had, like, people that I know, they're like, well, I could go buy whatever car I want, and then they go to a dealership and then they have a challenge buying, and I'm like, they literally have the money in the bank, they could pay for it cash, and yet they still walk out the door. Why is that? Right? Well, it's because the person didn't connect deeply with them enough. They didn't pull out the real core questions of why they're even purchasing a car to begin with. And we've worked with dealerships. Dealerships are I would say, pretty cutthroat. Like, we've had dealerships that are like, look, we do 7% growth year on year, and if we don't get that, you're fired, right? So. But the personal touch definitely matters, especially now. I mean, it takes 12 to 15 impressions for somebody to even take action on something.
Well, not only that, I think people are less brand centric than they've ever been. I mean, the pandemic basically proved to customers that really they can buy anything. And I think that's the thing that's going to be interesting as we move forward with Lucid and Tesla and Amazon and BYD and other companies. I think as you look at the global automakers, I actually had a conversation with a friend of my brother's yesterday. They're looking for a vehicle. And, I said, hey, like, what are you actually looking for? They said, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, there's lots of options, but there's no bad options. It's really about experience. And I think that's really what it comes down to. If you're buying a Porsche, it doesn't matter. There's no bad car. I actually watched, I think it's John Hammond from that, whatever, the World Tour or whatever his show is now on Amazon. And he had a 911 that Porsche sent him a message saying, listen, don't drive this. The wheels can come off. So he thought he would drive a Lamborghini sort of SUV, which it's not supposed to be called that, to see how that was. And then he spent the whole video talking about how it was such a piece of crap. I was like, interesting, Ferrari loaned him this vehicle. And then he just hated it. It was just kind of interesting. But what do you think, Brandy? I mean, we're running out of time, so we got final thoughts. So go ahead.
Yeah, I honestly, all of the things we've touched on obviously matter. If you could leave it with any note, is to really kill them with kindness. Do what AI can't do for you. Stop calling just for a sale. Build that relationship. Treat it like it is their most important sale rather than the number to you. That is how you'll make yourself stand out for sure.
And Rhonda had a link there, which I'll put in the description for the recording, just in case you wanted to check that out. Tim, what do you think? Final thoughts? You're muted, by the way. Yeah.
I just think not anything additional to what I already said. I just think you want to be ready for the future. To the first point I made, nobody's going to be able to forecast what happens in the future. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what company you're invested in. Whatever else, you're not going to be able to predict what's going to happen. So look at what you can control. To the point that Brandy put out there, that's, it is about what you can control that AI is not going to do for you. And of course, to me, that's always getting right back to your data. The intelligence that your organization has, it's sitting right there in your systems. And there are tens of systems that are out there to help you bring it all together and do something with it, and have great folks like Daniel be able to make magic work with programmatic media on one hand and whatever other creative he can bring to the table. But if you're not doing that, then I think you're just, if you keep subscribing to third parties that you can't control, if you keep putting companies or intermediaries between you and your customer, which is what we did the last 15 years with Meta and Alphabet, with Facebook and Google, you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to do it as much anymore. You still need to fish where the fish are, yes, but you don't have to do it as much as you used to. 2 minutes. Look at what you have to control. And when Larry says 2 minutes, he actually means 15.
So Larry, you want final thoughts for 2 minutes, or you need 15?
Yeah, I think that I'm going to defer to Brandy and Tim. I think what they said was perfect. In what Tim said in terms of accessing all the tools that are out there, and Brandy, you said it beautifully. Be kind, be human. No AI, no computer can smile, put its arm around you, tell a joke, or say, that happened to me. I know exactly what you mean.
Thanks for that, Larry. And Peter, final thoughts?
Well, first, I want to thank you for inviting me to the show today.
No problem.
My prediction is that we're going to see massive changes moving forward. And I mean massive, so much that dealers' heads will spin. It will become a very unique business in the next 18 months. And those who get it will remain. Those who don't will be consolidated. And that's where I see it.
100%.
And you're gonna see groups that, like Morgan Auto Group, they're gonna go from 77 to probably 110 in the next 2 years.
Agreed.
And same with Sarah and the big ones. They're in massive growth spurts, and they're just doing it because they can.
Understood. Rhonda, final thoughts?
Well, I want to thank Daniel for introducing me to AGI, which now I have a day of Google to figure out what the heck that is. But I want to introduce Daniel to Larry's book, which is the link I put in the chat.
Fantastic.
And thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Have yourself a great week, and all the best for 2025. Next week's show will be the seasonal show, and it will be an open show. And if you need anything, just ask. See you at any day. Ciao.
Take care,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Good showing.